we deep dive into Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati's lifetime, life history, one very important thing to remember. Okay, I want you to remember the last line of this pranam mantra. It's a long pranam mantra, but the last two lines of this is Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Viruddhapa Siddhanta Dvantaharine. Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Viruddhapa Siddhanta Dvantaharine. So we're going to talk about an acharya whose advent to this material world was in the most, so to say, unfavorable circumstances he appeared. And as the pranam mantra suggests, it's actually this pranam mantra is composed by one of his disciples. He says Rupanuga Viruddhapa Siddhanta Dvantaharine. This word Viruddhapa Siddhanta Dvantaharine is a very important word, because that's what the life and the teachings of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur exemplifies. So we come in the Chaitanya's parampara, where our primary teaching of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which we all are familiar with, Pranadapi Sunichena Taroriva Sahishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's this famous teaching, all of us we know, and how difficult it is also, we have seen that practically. So all the acharyas who have come after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the six Goswamis, Narottam Das Thakur, or Jiva Goswami, all of them have exemplified this characteristic of humility. So what happened in due course of time, because this history, this context is so important to know, unless we know this Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's contribution, we can't appreciate it. So they were all very humble, they were all very meek, and as time passes by after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the exact philosophy of Gaudiya Vaishnavism was lost. Because, these devotees were very simple, very humble, they were not fighting with others. And the core philosophy of Chaitanya's philosophy was lost in the names of so many apasampradayas. They were caste Goswais. I mean, you have to born in a family of Goswamis to practice this devotion. Or bhakti used to be practiced by very poor people who are they don't have any other means of existence. They were practicing. Or there are those owls and bowls, sahajiyas, who in the name of Krishna Prema, even the men devotees used to dress themselves as Radharani or Gopis, and they used to go around. Imagine practically how difficult it will be. Now we are in a situation where we have so much of clarity because of our previous Acharya's contribution. But born in a time, especially it all, Bhakti Vinod Thakur and Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, these two Acharyas are considered to be the pioneers in bringing back the originality and the genuineness of Chaitanya's tradition. So Bhakti Vinod Thakur, as I think I had shared this earlier, when he was looking for an original copy of Chaitanya Charitamrita, it took him 10 years to find a copy of Chaitanya Charitamrita. So most of the devotees who were genuine and who were practicing Chaitanya's philosophy, they were Bhajananandis, they were living in secluded place. And the others who were practicing Gaudiya Vaishnavism, they didn't have the right understanding, or they didn't know the essence. Under such circumstances, Bhakti Vinod Thakur prayed to Lord Jagannath, please send me a son, give me a son who can smash, who can just destroy this, apasampradayas, be it impersonalism, be it all this sahajiyas, be it all this kind of misconceptions that people have about bhakti, and establish the true essence of bhakti. And his prayers were answered on the 5th day of the dark lunar fortnight of the month of Govinda. That is actually February 6th, 1874, English lunar calendar. At 3:30 in the afternoon, Bimal Prasad Dutt, later to be known as Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, made his appearance in Purushottam Kshetra, Jagannath Puri. in the state of Orissa. And his house was not very far from Lord Jagannath's temple. I mean, right now there is a Gaudiya Mutt there. And he was the fourth son of Bhakti Vinod Thakur. And Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's mother's name was Bhagavati Devi. So when he was born, at that time, his body had those symptoms of a Mahapurusha, of a very great personality. And it was pointed out by an experienced astrologer. So it was seen that the umbilical cord was wrapped around his neck like a Brahmin's thread. And the astrologer commented that I have done many horoscopes in my life, but I have never before seen such a horoscope filled with all the signs of a great personality. This child will become a world famous as a brilliant teacher of life's ultimate goal. So when the child was 6 months old, there's something very interesting which happened. And it's worth knowing this incident in Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's life. Usually what happens when this Rath Yatra happens in Puri, Jagannath Ratha is known to stop at various places, which is not unusual or uncommon. But something uncommon happened when Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. So imagine, February is when he took birth, and Rath Yatra usually happens in July. So March, April, May, June, July, maybe 4 or 5 months. And July, Rath Yatra was happening, and this Ratha got stopped in front of Bhakti Vinod Thakur's house for 3 days. That's unusual. That doesn't happen. So the car stopped right in front of Bhakti Vinod Thakur's house for 3 days. And since Bhakti Vinod Thakur was the district magistrate, he asked Bhagavati Devi to bring the child Bimala Prasad. Bimala Prasad, the name Bhakti Vinod Thakur had given because Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur was born by the blessings of Bimala Devi, the internal potency of the Lord. So Bhagavati Devi, when she brought the baby Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur in front of the Lord, there is a garland which fell upon him. And it just fell right on his neck. So this was taken as a sign of a special favor by all the present devotees. And the grain ceremony was observed on the cart at this time. So Anna Prasanna, whatever that happened that time itself, and was done with Jagannath Mahaprasad. Usually, when there is a samskara which is performed, there is a ceremony, ritualistic thing which happens where a boy is given the choice to choose between some money and Bhagavatam. So when the boy's vocational inclination was tested, he immediately embraced Srimad Bhagavatam, indicating his future as a preacher. Therefore, from the very beginning of his appearance, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur exhibited all the signs of an exalted eternal associate of the Lord who had descended in answer to Srila Bhakti Vinod's prayer for a ray of Vishnu. His biography is known as Ray of Vishnu, to help him spread the Krishna consciousness movement. It's just one ray that the prayer, as it says, the Gaura Sakti, that ray of Vishnu. Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinatarine Rupam. Shri Gaura Karuna Sakti Vigrahaya Namastate. To preach the message of Krishna, one needs the energy or empowerment from the Lord directly. So Bhakti Vinod Thakur prays for a ray of Vishnu to help him spread the Krishna consciousness movement. Mind you, this is the time when India is ruled by the Britishers. I was just seeing, I was trying to, actually I could not make it just in time for the presentation. But if you search in YouTube, you will find it. 1900 India. Search for that and see, there will be some videos, black and white videos. You can see what kind of mentality people had at that time. They were all busy how to get freedom for the country. Country was not independent, and the first and the foremost thing which was going on in people's mind was how to get independence. Under those circumstances, to start something like Gaudiya Matha or Gaudiya Vaishnavism, to spread that, one needs real empowerment. And we will see that in the life of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. There are just amazing pastimes, so inspiring. At the age of 7, actually, Bhakti Vinod Thakur had taken all his children So mine, as I told, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur was the fourth child. He had taken all his children to a pilgrimage to Nadia, Navadvip. And they were staying in a place called Kulinagram. Kulinagram, you know where it is? Okay. So in that Kulinagram, they were staying in the house of a devotee. And in that house, it was empty. So they were asked to stay there and they didn't mind staying there. But later on, it was revealed that the house was actually haunted. It was a ghostly house. That's why it was empty. And so after they have spent a few days over there, some people went and asked Bhaktivinoda Thakur, there used to be a Brahma Rakshas who used to live in that house. That's why that house was empty. How could you manage to stay there? So Bhaktivinoda Thakur said that actually, we chanted the names of the Lord, and that's how, that Brahma Rakshasa left. So the villagers, they inquired, the Kulinagram villagers, they're inquiring that actually that Brahma Rakshasa was the priest who used to worship the deity of Radha Krishna. And how did he become a Brahma Rakshasa? So Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that if somebody commits Vaishnava Aparadh and is careless in his devotional life, he gets haunted. And he can only be delivered by a Vaishnava, a pure Vaishnava. So by the chanting of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Hare Krishna Mahamantra, that Brahma Rakshasa got liberated. On a similar note, there was another incident which happened when Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to live with another brahmachari in a small hut, and Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur was writing some, whatever he was studying, he was making some notes. And the other brahmachari suddenly saw one hand. So one hand, when it appeared in front of him, that brahmachari actually screamed, "Oh, Maria, and something like that. He would have screamed. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur scolded him, "You fool! You could have chanted loudly Hare Krishna mantra, no? Why are you screaming?" So he said, okay, sorry, galti ho gaya, maaf kar. And then again he started studying, and then all of a sudden again that hand appeared again. So this time again he forgot to chant Hare Krishna mantra, and he again screamed, "Oh!" And we do also, right? Something happens like that. We don't remember to chant the names of the Lord. So Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur scolded him further and saying that, you should chant now shlokas of Srimad Bhagavat. Hare Krishna mantra only is not coming, how Srimad Bhagavatam shlokas will come. But he said, okay, I'll do. And the third time, when the hand appeared, again that fellow forgot. Somehow, after, he closed his eyes and all, then Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur chanted the names of the Lord, Hare Krishna mantra, and that person got delivered. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur was so scholarly that at the age of 7, he learned all the 700 slokas of Bhagavad Gita. Now you may say, what's big deal? Nowadays there are so many people who come even on TV saying that we have memorized all the verses of Bhagavad Gita. But very interestingly, what separates an Acharya, he not only remembered the 700 slokas, he knew the meanings of this. He could explain those 700 slokas at the age of 7. He became very, very scholarly. Okay, before that, there was a very interesting incident which happened in the life of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur when he was 3 years old. Yeah, so this incident, if we don't touch, then okay, I wanted to show a photograph of Bhaktivinoda Thakur and his family. Can you identify where Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur is here? Bhaktivinoda Thakur is there in the center, right? Not easy, not difficult to recognize him. Where is Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur in this? This is Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's mother, Bhagavati Devi. All are Vaishnavas. Can you identify? Any guess? Where is Bhakti Siddhanta? Extreme left on this one or this one?
Father's side, extreme right.
Extreme right?
Father, from the father's right hand side. Bhaktivinoda Thakur's extreme right. Yeah.
Okay. Not this? Yeah, you're all right. You guessed him right. He is there on the left hand side. the right hand side. Vimal Prasad is this. Varada Prasad is this one. Kedarnath Dutt. Krishna Vinodini and Kadambini. And Bhagavati Dasi. Bhagavati Devi Dasi. Then second row, Kamala Prasad, Sailaja Prasad. There are some grandchildren, unknown grandchild, and Hari Pramodini. Front row, 2 unknown grandchildren. This is just an actual file picture of Bhakti Vinod Thakur and Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Okay. So, yeah, this incident happened when he was hardly 3 years old or something. Some very ripe, succulent, juicy mangoes were brought by Bhakti Vinod Thakur. And so when he was small boy, perhaps 2 or 3 years old, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta, Bhakti Vinod Thakur brought some ripe mangoes from the market. Vimala Prasad took one to eat, saying, "This is mine." Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur got up and said in a grave voice, "What is this? New fruit has come into the house. It has not been offered to Giridhari, and you have taken it first. Remember, new fruit is to be given first to the Lord. Without giving the first share to the Lord, nothing is to be taken." The child was very repentant and exclaimed, "Oh, what evil thoughts I have had. Throughout my whole life, I shall not eat this again. This is the right punishment for one ruled by greed." He met the promise and observed it throughout his whole life. So this is such a powerful thing. Actually, Prabhupada comments on this. So Srila Prabhupada is commenting on this, that whenever we offered him mango, he said, "No, I'm an offender. I cannot take mango." He was thinking that I offended Krishna in my childhood by taking the mango of the deity. So this is the characteristic of the Acharya. They teach by their life's action. One should be so much. So basically, this one small incident, which anybody could have said he was just a child, he could have forgotten, he should not take it seriously. But the whole life he never took mango because he was considering himself to be an offender of Krishna or Vishnu. One of the most significant incident which happened in Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's life is when he met Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj. There are many incidents which have led to this very, very pivotal incident in his life of meeting Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj. And they share a very unique relationship, which is very important to know. So Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, as I said, at the age of 7, he had mastered all Sanskrit and he had memorized the entire Bhagavad Gita. And in 1895, he actually joined the Sanskrit college in Calcutta. Joined the college to learn Sanskrit. And he finished all the Sanskrit and all very, very quickly. And so he actually mentioned something very interesting. He says that if I remain studying with careful attention at the college, then extreme pressure will be brought upon me to enter family life. But if I'm considered to be foolish and inefficient, then no one will put such an inducement upon me for becoming so engaged. By this consideration, I left the Sanskrit college. And in order to maintain my life for the service of Hari, I was desirous of getting an honest occupation which I could perform with the intention of earning a humble income. He actually left in the middle. He didn't want to have this, pressure of entering into family life. He wanted to dedicate his life for Krishna. Actually, there are countless incidents. I wrote it in one piece of paper. I forgot to get it. So you can, but I'll tell you one very interesting incident which happened. He got the title of Siddhanta Saraswati at the age of 7. He was so scholarly that this title of Siddhanta Saraswati was given to him at the age of 7. So there was this very scholarly people who were trying to change the Panchanga, the what do you call this? Huh? Not the birth chart. The Panchanga is that which we see our this thing, the calendar. Yeah, they were trying to do some tithi. Yeah, they were doing some calculation and they were saying something wrong. So Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur had a debate with them. There were two of them. One was Prithvishwar Sarma, and another was some Sastri. I'm not able to recollect. They both together combinedly they came, and this Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur was a boy, and he defeated openly. So that was the level of his knowledge on astronomy and Sanskrit. Very, very, very scholarly. Siddhanta Saraswati had been engaged in regularly chanting the Mahamantra and Nrsimha mantra given to him by Srila Bhakti Thakur when he was in the 7th class. And he had been worshipping the Kurma deity. This is a very interesting thing. One Kurma deity was given to him by Bhakti Thakur to worship, which was discovered in laying the foundation of the Bhakti Bhavan in Calcutta. And since the age of 7, without fail, he had been executing that worship and chanting since the boyhood. And from 1885 onward, he had received a special training in printing, editing, etc. at the press at the Bhakti Bhavan. So Bhakti Thakur actually he had invested all his hopes. He was giving him all his trainings so that, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur grows up as a Vaishnava, as an empowered Vaishnava to preach this cult of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It is mentioned one of the incidents in his growing up years. There was a sannyasi who was a sahajiya who had visited Bhakti Thakur's house, and Bhakti Thakur paid respect and gave him some prasadam to eat. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur didn't even bow down before. And that sannyasi was so angry. He said, "What is this? Your boy is just so proud and impudent. He doesn't bow down before me." So Bhakti Thakur said, "Hey, he doesn't bow down before Sahajiyas, what to do? I've got a son like that." So Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur was actually born in Karkata Rasi. Karkata is something which bites, right? So he used to say, since my Rasi, my Rasi, what is it called in English? Sign, zodiac sign, is Karkata. If somebody presents anything which is incorrect, he'll just smash them. And it's not out of arrogance, or it's as Bhakti Thakur is saying, it's out of humility, because we need to preserve the real essence of Chaitanya's philosophy. Had it not been done, had it been just gone like that, we would have not been sitting here and discussing Krishna conscious philosophy. In 1898, after Srila Bhakti Thakur had constructed his residence in Navadvip Dham at Godrumadvip and called it Swananda Sukhada Kunja, and sometime after the discovery of Lord Chaitanya's birth site by the Thakur and Srila Jagannath Das Babaji, Sri Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj arrived in Navadvip Dham. This is very interesting, because I was telling, just to know how this happened, to see the site of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's birth and to hear the discourses of Srila Bhakti Thakur. So when he arrived, he was singing in ecstasy. His only possessions were the Tulasi Mala. Whose only possession was Tulasi Mala? Gaur Kishore Das Babaji. And this was, he was wearing it around his neck. And another set he kept in his hand for counting. He kept a few books, such as Narottam Das Thakur's works, Prarthana and Prema Bhakti Chandrika. Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj had been performing bhajan for many years in Vrindavan. He was extremely renounced and was the disciple of Bhagavad Das Babaji, the disciple of Jagannath Das Babaji. He was not at all well educated and had been a grain merchant in his previous existence, but it was widely known that he was a liberated Paramahamsa of the highest caliber in the area of Brajamandal. At the time of his arrival, he was wearing a cap made up of tiger skin and was carrying a basket which has got various items and materials for his service. He spotted Siddhanta Saraswati and offered him 4 or 5 pieces of knotted rope of chanting rounds, a tilaka stamp with initials for Hare Krishna, the tiger skin cap, and paraphernalia for worship. Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj had received the basket and cap from his spiritual master, Bhagavad Das Babaji. Siddhanta Saraswati was very attracted to Gaur Kishore Das Babaji's lotus feet at first sight. He was later to comment with great humility. This is Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur recollecting about meeting Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj very nicely. I have been busy within this material world trying to bring a sense gratification within the grasp of my hand. I've often thought that by obtaining the objects of sense gratification, all my shortcomings will be fulfilled. I often attained different facets that were indeed very rare, but my own personal shortcomings were never mitigated. In this material world, I have had the association of very high class aristocratic persons. However, seeing their various deficiencies, I could not offer them praise. The most respectful Supreme Lord, Sri Gaura Sundara, seeing me in such a lamentable condition at such a time of adversity, gave permission to his two dearmost devotees, Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur and Srila Gaura Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, to grant their blessings to me, because I was always intoxicated with a worldly false ego, wanting again and again self-appraisal. I deprived myself of my own real benefit. But because of the influence of my previous birth's activities in devotional service, I came into the association of Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, who was the form of my spiritual well-wisher. My spiritual master, Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji, would go and visit Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur and many times would reside with him. Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, out of his compassion for other living entities, pointed out my spiritual master, Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj. Upon seeing my spiritual master, the extent of my worldly false ego diminished. I knew that all the other living entities who have taken the human form of life were also fallen and low like myself. But by gradually observing the spiritual character of my master, I realized that only a Vaishnava could reside in this material world and be of exemplary character. One of the very powerful things one of the very, very striking thing about Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur is the way he used to emphasize on conducting ourselves. Speaking about Krishna conscious philosophy is very easy. That's why the poem that he has written, Dushta Mana Tume Kisere Vaishnava. What kind of a Vaishnava are we? Actually, we'll read that. Very, very powerful. These are some of the things which Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur has exemplified in his life. That's why he's an Acharya. It's not about just speaking, it's about conducting oneself. So even though he was very scholarly, even though he was very erudite scholar in Sanskrit, he accepted Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj as his spiritual master. So the first time when Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur met Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj and asked him for initiation, Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj said, I have to ask Mahaprabhu. I have to ask Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to give me permission, because he never had any disciple. If he gives me permission, then your desire will be fulfilled. So Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur left him, and then he went and came back again another day and asked Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, did you ask Mahaprabhu? What did Mahaprabhu say? Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj replied that actually Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared, but I forgot to ask him. So the third time Babaji Maharaj was requested, he replied, I asked, I did not receive the command of Mahaprabhu. Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur then stood up, his heart breaking, and said, you, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Srila Gaur Kishore, are both worshippers of Krishna, the crest jewels of debauchees. Therefore, why will you take mercy on someone dedicated to ordinary morality like me? In his pastimes as the exemplary teacher, Mahaprabhu has given instructions on the worship of Krishna, the crest jewel of debauchees. Therefore, why will he give the command to take mercy on me? But Karuna nakaile kandiya pranana rakhive ara. So if I'm not going to get the mercy of you or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then what is the point of my living? If there is no mercy, weeping and whipping, I can sustain my life no more. And he was about to jump from the bridge. That is when that's when Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj actually saw his desperation, his genuineness, his honest intentions, and he accepted him as his disciple. Bhakti Siddhanta, Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj never used to allow anyone to touch his feet. But when he accepted Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he kept his lotus feet on him. After thus indicating his readiness to take his life, Siddhanta Saraswati began to cry. So Gaur Kishore Das Babaji's heart was melted, and then he accepted. This pastime bears a striking resemblance to the relationship between Narottam Das Thakur and Loknath Goswami. Loknath Goswami also had one disciple, like Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj had one disciple, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Loknath Das Goswami's disciple is who? Huh? Yeah, Narottam Das Thakur. So it exemplifies the extreme humble and the humility of this acharyas. They exemplify in their own life, and this is a great lesson to learn from this. Now, the next thing that we will see is how Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur established this Gaudiya Math. It's a very profound thing that happened. To see that, I read this actually. So Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, when he was about to establish this Gaudiya Math, he exhibited some kind of austerity which is unheard of in life. He took the vow of chanting 1 billion names before he could come up with a institutionalization of this spreading of this movement. 1 billion names is roughly 190 rounds of Hare Krishna mantra chanting. So he used to live in a hut, in a simple hut, and that hut had many holes and it used to leak. With one hand he was carrying an umbrella, and no time wasted. It took about 10 years to chant 1 billion names. He used to cook himself some simply khichdi or some simple rice and dal without salt, without anything, and whatever, even not washing it, just putting it on the floor, he used to eat, but he used to chant 190 rounds. That's how actually starting a spiritual movement or changing the heart of another person can only happen if we carry the spiritual purity. It's not about how many verses we know. It's not about how many quotations we have. It's about having that spiritual purity in heart. So that spiritual purity comes by touching the spiritual substance earnestly with the right intention, and that's what Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur did for 10 years. These are all the acharyas. They show from their life how determined they are to spread this mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to spread this Krishna consciousness. And then after that, he established this Gaudiya Math. Very interesting story about this establishment of Gaudiya Math. There was one Kunja Babu who was a devotee of Chaitanya, who was thinking of starting Bhakti Vinod Thakur used to have a association called Vishwa Vaishnava Sangha, where he used to invite people every week and they used to have meeting. But it was not an organized, it was not an institution. Amongst those people who were coming to Bhakti Vinod Thakur's house was one person by name Kunja Babu. And this Kunja Babu, when he was thinking of starting an institution worldwide, he heard it from someone that Vimala Prasad, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, is the right person who can help him organize and establish a worldwide movement. So those days, as I was mentioning, for the 10 years, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur was busy chanting the names of the Lord, taking the names of the Lord. So this person, Kunja Babu, came and he saw that Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur was staying next to a river. He didn't know who Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur was. So he saw that he's some young man who was just taking a dip in the river and running. And then this Kunja Babu stopped and asked him, "Do you know where is Bimala Prasad?" He said, "I am Bimala Prasad." "Okay, I've been asked that, to meet you because you can start a worldwide, you can start an organizational, you can start an organization to spread Krishna consciousness." Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, can't you see that there is, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu dancing in the horizon? There is Nityananda Prabhu along with him, Advaita Acharya. They're all dancing in ecstasy of Hare Krishna, chanting Hare Krishna mantra. What need is there for a worldwide movement or an organization to be established? And he ran to his hut. And Kunja Babu thought, this fellow is a sentimentalist. He doesn't know how to start. Probably he's not the right candidate. Maybe I was not given the right information. And then after the 10 years of 1 billion names was chanted by Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he goes to Kunja Babu and says that, many years back you had come and met me and you had asked me about starting a worldwide movement. Are you still thinking about it? He said, yes. And then in 2 hours, they chalked out everything and Gaudiya Math was established. Mind you, 64 Gaudiya Maths in all over the country when the country was not independent. And organized religion was not heard of like this, the way they started. So on this incident, when Prabhupada recollects, he says, the pure devotee of the Lord knows exactly when to start, how to start, and when to preach this message of Krishna. Now, the time that we have, as I said, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's times, the pastimes are amazing. There is one pastime which I must say before I go and share some of the quotes, because that the real power of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur lies in removing those misconceptions about Vaishnavism or about the Apasiddhantas which were present in the society, to remove that. That's his biggest contribution. So we have to hear what his instructions are very minutely, very closely. But before that, there was one incident which had happened. This was a caste Gosai who had challenged at those days that anybody who has not taken birth in the family of Gosais or Brahmanas cannot worship Saligram Sila. So, and they opposed in a very strong way. There were a lot of strong oppositions at that time. And Bhakti Vinod Thakur had been requested to go and speak on behalf of all the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. But Bhakti Vinod Thakur at those days were so sick and he was so old that he thought he would not be able to go. So he sent Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur goes, and it was a discussion for 7 days. So for the first 5 or 6 days, he just spoke how important it is to become a Brahmana. Only when you come to the standard of Brahmanical standard, that you can worship the Lord. Without becoming a Brahmana, there is no question of even coming close to the Lord. So then those guys were very happy. Probably he's on our side. He's talking about Brahmanas only are required to worship. And the last day, when Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur spoke, he just smashed them. How Vaishnavas are superior to Brahmanas, the caste Brahmanas or the caste Gosais. And the arguments put forward by Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur was so clear and lucid that the whole people, the whole assembly of people who were present there, they wanted to go and touch the dust of lotus feet of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And at that time, the police who was assembled, who were there to control, expecting that there could be a stampede, what they did was they washed the feet of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur and they put it in a drum, and that water was sprinkled on everyone so that they don't come and touch the feet of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and he was taken away. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, in his during the manifested pastimes of his life, he faced a lot of challenges. In fact, to the extent of one police officer was bribed to kill him, but yet he never gave up the enthusiasm or the conviction to spread Krishna consciousness. Let us see a few of his quotes, and there is one song that we will see, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's own song, the song that he has written. What is he trying to say? In this world of Maya, which is averse to the Lord, full of trials and tribulations, only patience, humility, and respect for others are our friends for Hari Bhajan. Actually, these quotes are very deep realizations. These are not just simply taken out of somewhere. If really we want to practice Hari Bhajan, it's not easy, because the world, anyway, material world is created in such a manner that we're bound to see so many difficulties, tribulations, and trials. So what can help us? Patience, humility, and respect for others are our friends for Hari Bhajan. Even if not a single person stays with me, even if all the people of this world, what to speak of others, even those who have come into my association and are exhibiting faith in me, leave me one by one. Still standing under the shelter of the lotus feet of my Gurudev, I will not stop myself. That is, turn backwards from engaging fearlessly in the kirtan of the true, uncontaminated, real message till the last moment of my stay in this world. If someday the real, true message will enter the ears of some fortunate soul, bestowed with the fortune of past pious activities, Sukriti, Sukriti Sali, then through such one person alone, the whole world shall receive the topmost benefit. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Jagadguru Prabhupada. Do not give up the worship of Hari even amidst hundreds of dangers, hundreds of insults, or hundreds of persecutions. Do not become unenthusiastic upon seeing that the majority of people in the world are not accepting the message of Krishna's sincere worship. Never give up the audition and glorification of the topics of Krishna. They are your own personal worship and your very all and all. Being humble like a blade of grass and patient like a tree, constantly glorify Hari. Actually, these instructions of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur are so powerful and so important and so hope-giving, because we see in our lives also, sometimes some devotee comes, goes and leaves, something happens, our life goes through some upheavals. But as Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur is telling, do not give up this Hari Bhajan. That is the only thing. And it is only possible if we have never give up the audition and glorification of the topics of Krishna. Towards the end of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's life, when he was sick, he was giving a discourse on Krishna consciousness, and apparently he was very sick. So the disciples of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur was recommending that you should not speak. So, and you should take rest. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur is saying that this glorification of Krishna, that's the mission of life. That's what even Narada Muni addresses to Vedavyas. When Vedavyas was despondent, the solution which is recommended by Narada Muni is to broadcast the glories of Krishna. So Harikatha is the biggest relief. When I'm getting an opportunity to speak about Krishna Katha, what else relaxation I need? And he went on to talk. He exemplified this in his life. Let me share two songs of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Very, very nice. Let's see that. This is a song which is written by Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur himself. So, it says, Dushta Mana Tume Kisere Vaishnava. I'm just reading this. I'll tell you some of the things which Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur is asking us to look at. Very, very powerful. Very, one has to really meditate and contemplate on this. Dushta Mana Tume Kisere Vaishnava. Pratisthare Tare Nirjanare Ghare Taba Arinama Kevala Kaitava. Dushta Mana, wicked mind, what kind of a Vaishnava are you? Pratisthara Tare Nirjanare Ghare Taba Arinama Kevala Kaitava. So, you know, one of the very famous quotes of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur is, by just purchasing a 10 rupee ticket from Navadvip to Mathura, one cannot enter into Vrindavan. The consciousness that is required to enter into Vrindavan is of a very different kind. Simply just going to a place like Vrindavan and showing that I have become a very advanced devotee, it's only for Pratishtha. Dushta Mana Tume Kishere Vaishnava. Pratisthare Tare Nirjanare Ghare Tabe Arinama Kevala Kaitava. Jadera Pratishtha Sukarera Vishtha Janana Ki Taha Mayara Vaibhava Kanaka Kamini Divasa Yamini Bhabiya Ki Kaja Anitya Se Saba. So the meaning of this one is, the second one, such materialistic prestige is as disgusting as the stool of a hog. Materialistic prestige is as disgusting as There are three words which Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur focuses on. One is called Kanchana. Kanchana represents money or wealth. Kamini represents the attraction for opposite sex. And the third thing is Pratishtha. Kanchana, Kamini, and Pratishtha. Such materialistic prestige is as disgusting as the stool of a hog. Do you not know that it is only a mere illusion cast by the potency of Maya? What is the value of contemplating day and night your plans for enjoying wealth and women? All these things are only temporary. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, towards the end of his, not maybe towards the end, but he has made a statement that in my 40 years of preaching Krishna consciousness, I could not find a person who is clean and pure in his heart and not just a platform speaker. So many of us, we speak Krishna conscious philosophy. But what Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur is telling is how many of us practice what we speak? How many of us really do that? So it's not about external thing. It's about how much I'm doing that internal purification work. As per Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, he said, I could not find even a single person. When you claim wealth as your own, it creates in your ever-increasing desire for material enjoyment. When we say this wealth is mine, it creates in your ever-increasing desires for material enjoyment. Your riches should be used for serving Madhava, the Lord of wealth, the Lord of all wealth. Neither is it your proper place to indulge in lust for women, whose only true proprietor is Lord Yadava. The demon Ravana fought with Lord Ramachandra in order to gain the tree of worldly reputation, but that oasis turned out to be but a mirage, cast in the desert wasteland of the Lord's illusory material potency. Please cultivate fixed determination to attain only the steady and solid platform whereupon a Vaishnava ever stands. If you neglect worshipping the Lord from this position, then you will ultimately attain a hellish existence. Why do you needlessly suffer the torment of blaspheming the devotees of Lord Hari, attempting to achieve their eminence, thereby only proving your own fruitless foolishness? The desire for spiritual eminence is easily fulfilled when one becomes a devotee of the Lord, for eternal fame automatically follows the heels of a Vaishnava, and that fame is never to be considered a temporary opulence, worldly opulence. Why do you needlessly suffer the torment of blaspheming the devotees of Lord Hari? Why do you do that? Attempting to achieve their eminence, thereby only proving your own fruitless foolishness. The desire for spiritual eminence is easily fulfilled when one becomes a devotee of the Lord, for eternal fame automatically follows the heels of the Vaishnava. The relationship between a devotee and Lord Hari is devoid of even a trace of worldly illusion. It has nothing to do with the materialistic cheating propensity. The prestige of so-called popularity in the material realm is compared to a treacherous dog-eating witch, and the attempt to live in a solitude to supposedly engage in unalloyed bhajan is compared to an entangling network of distraction. Please know that anyone striving in either of these ways verily lives in the hell of Maya's illusion. This pratishtha is a very subtle thing. Kanchana and Kamini still by some way or other a person can overcome. But this idea of becoming a popular devotee, the idea of getting the accolades, I have done this. Actually, by doing that, we lose the taste for real Hari Kirtan. Oh, I can speak so well, I can cook so well, I can sing so well. But the attempt there is Atmendriya Priti. People should glorify me. That is not Krishna Prema. Atmendriya Priti, very calm. It is not satisfying Krishna. And the more and more we do that, the more and more we see, we don't look into these weeds, the more and more we lose taste for Hari Bhajan. I shall give up chanting the Lord's name publicly in Kirtan and retire to solitude, thus smearing myself with worldly honor. Dear mind, what is the good of seeking such so-called glory? I will always remind you that the great soul Madhavendra Puri never deceived himself in that regard by committing theft in his own storehouse of perception the way you do. Your cheap reputation is equal to the stool of a hog. An ordinary ambitious man like you can never be equated with a devotee of Madhavendra Puri's eminence. Under the sway of envy, you have drowned yourself in the filthy waters of material enjoyment after having abandoned the excellent perfection of congregational kirtan. Truly, O wicked mind, the glories of so-called solitary worship are propagated only by the false yogis using unscrupulous means to deceive others. To save yourself from these pitfalls, please contemplate the instructions that the Supreme Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu kindly gave us while addressing Srila Sanatana Goswami with the utmost care. Do not forget for a moment the two most valuable concepts that he taught: the principle of dry, apparent renunciation as opposed to real, appropriate renunciation, and two, the principle of a soul being trapped in the bondage of matter as opposed to a soul who is liberated. Don't ever make the mistake of thinking that these conflicting concepts are on the same level. Please remember this while engaging yourself in chanting the Lord's holy names as loud as you possibly can. One is truly a Vaishnava who has given up the habit of falling victim to the ferocious tigress of wealth. This is called Bhagini. Wealth, beauty, and fame. Kanchana, Kamini, and Pratishtha. Such a soul is factually detached from material life and is known as a pure devotee. Someone with this consciousness of detachment has thereby become victorious over the mundane world of birth and death. The 11th one is Kanaka Kamini Pratishtha Bhagini. Chadiya che yara sei ta Vaishnava. Sei anasakta, sei suddha bhakta, sansara tatha paya parabhava. So, in these instructions of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, we need to contemplate and meditate. Because Vaishnavism or becoming a devotee is not an easy thing. A jnani is looking perfection to get the jnana. A yogi is looking to achieve that perfection, siddhi. A karmi is looking some fruitive results, right? The phala. But what is it that bhakta is looking? Bhakta, if he is looking for anything, then he is no more a bhakta. He is gone. So just to relish the true Harina, just to relish the kirtan, just to relish Harikatha, you have to give up lot of anarthas. Lots of anarthas have to be given. And that can happen only by the mercy and blessings of our acharyas who have exemplified in their life. I want to sing this song. This usually we sing when there is an appearance or a disappearance of an acharya. It used to be, still is one of my favorite songs. Is the Sadananda Dasa prayer. We will sing this. It's just 5-6 stanzas are there, and we will read the translation. And we will close. এবার করুণা কর বৈষ্ণব গোসাই এবার পতিত পাবন তোমা বিনে কেহ না যাহার নিকটে গেলে পাপ দূরে যায় এমন দয়াল প্রভু কেবা কোথা পায় গঙ্গার পরশ হইলে পাশ্চাত্য পাবন Darsani pavitra koro ei tomar guna. हरिस्थाने अपराधे तारे हरिना. तोमा स्थाने अपराधे नाही परित्राण. तोमार हृदय सदा गोविंद विश्राम. गोविंद को है नामोरा वैष्णव पराम. प्रति जन्मे कोरी आशा चरणे राधुली. नरोत्तमे कोरो दया अपनारा बोली. एबार करुणा करो वैष्णव गोसाई. पतित पावन तुमा बिने के होना. Let's see the meaning. Actually, it's very powerful. O Vaishnava Goswami, please be merciful to me now. There is no one except you who can purify the fallen souls. Where does anyone find such a merciful personality by whose mere audience all sins go far away? After bathing in the waters of the sacred Ganges, many times one becomes purified. But just by the sight of you, the fallen souls are purified. This is your great power. The holy name delivers one who has committed an offense to Lord Hari. But if one commits an offense to you, there is no means of deliverance. Your heart is always the resting place of Lord Govinda. Lord Govinda says, the Vaishnavas are in my heart. I desire the dust of your holy feet in every birth I may take. Please consider Narottam yours and be kind upon him. So we can remove the Narottama and we should pray humbly and genuinely. This is not an easy thing. It's not what we are trying to say or what we are trying to do is far from what is expected of us. So to develop that taste for Harinam, to develop that taste to serve Vaishnavas, to develop that taste to be meek and humble, to develop the taste of real Vaishnava, it's a hard work. So that's why on this auspicious day of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's appearance, we should humbly, genuinely and sincerely pray that such exalted Vaishnava, if they bless, if we become somehow the recipient of their mercy, there is a chance that we may stick and we may follow the right path and not get deviated from this path. I'll stop here and see if you have any questions. The Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Prabhupada ki. Any question? I'll just take 2 minutes and conclude with this one last time, and with that we'll stop. My screen visible? Okay. So I'm just reading something, just pay attention to this. Very interesting point Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur is trying to communicate. I don't want to say what is it, just pay attention. Although most persons generally do not appreciate others' criticism of them, the Vedic literatures say that tolerating and forgiving our critics is beneficial. So most persons generally do not appreciate others' criticism of them. Who likes really? But the Vedic literatures say that tolerating and forgiving our critics is beneficial. Forgiving our critics is a course recommended in the Bible, the Quran, and the other religious traditions. Yet, what happens to the critic? The English writer and philosopher Aldous Huxley has described the effects that follow the constant and intense concentration upon evil are always disastrous. Those who crusade not for God in themselves, but against the demons in others, never succeed in making the world better. These words of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur are these are heavy. The effects, so it's talking about someone who's, what happens to the critic? The effects that follow the constant and intense concentration upon evil. So if somebody is thinking about someone in a negative way or intense concentration upon evil are always disastrous. Those who crusade not for God in themselves, but against the demons in others, never succeed in making the world better. No man can concentrate his attention on evil or even the idea of evil and remain unaffected. So if you're just seeing something bad in someone, no man can concentrate his attention on evil or even the idea of evil and remain unaffected. You can never remain unaffected by that. To be more against the demon than for godliness is exceedingly dangerous. Even Crusader is apt to go mad. He is haunted by the wickedness that he attributes to his enemies. It becomes sort of a part of him. The following are some verses describing the Vedic teachings on this point. So this is from Bhagavatam 11:22. I'll just read the translation. Whoever indulges in praising or criticizing the qualities and behavior of others will quickly become deviated from his own best interest by his entanglement in illusory dualities. Krishna to Uddhava. Whoever indulges in praising or criticizing, actually none should be done, in praising or criticizing the qualities and behavior of others will quickly become deviated from his own best interest by his entanglement in illusory dualities. Throughout his life, a Brahmana should consider material prestige to be like a poison and dishonor to be like nectar. After all, if one learns to tolerate dishonor, then his agitation will subside and he will happily sleep, happily wake, and happily move about. The person who insults him will, because of his sin, become regretful, and his happiness in this and the next will be vanquished. This is Manu Samhita. Then the ignorant seek to injure the wise by malice and backbiting. By doing so, the critic takes upon himself the load of the wise man's sins, which he, the wise man, casts off by forgiving the ignorant. This is Vidura to Dhritarashtra. The ignorant seek to injure the wise by malice and backbiting. By doing so, the critic takes upon himself the load of wise man's sins. The critic takes upon himself the load of the wise man's sins. If you are critiquing or if you are criticizing, backbiting, having malice, you are taking the sin of that other person, which the wise man casts off by forgiving the ignorant. A person being criticized should not criticize in retaliation, for the pain felt upon receiving criticism, if endured, will itself consume the critic and bring in exchange the results of his good deeds. One who remains tolerant, not becoming angry, certainly attains the abuser's pious credits. Indeed, his own sins are transferred to that wrathful person. A person who praises someone in his presence but criticizes him behind his back is no better than a dog. His chances for elevation to higher planets are completely spoiled in this world. So these are some of the quotations of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, which talks about our internal progress that we need to make, how introspective and reflective should we be, and how we should develop that attitude of tolerance, and how we should not cultivate the attitude of resentment in our heart. And when we do that, how it is detrimental to our progress in spiritual life. With this, we'll end, unless you have any other questions, comments, reflections. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Nitai Gaur Premanande. Thank you for joining. Hare Krishna.